Sergio. How you going? The market's back, especially for commercial property. We're fortunate enough to have sort of a lot of properties on the market, so we can sort of see the trends when they sort of unfold. And I think we just recently achieved a sale, 3 Gondola Road, North Narrabeen, for 2.75 million, and it was an interesting campaign because it sort of went. The buyers had every obstacle not to buy it through the campaign. It
was a long campaign.
Yeah. I think it was probably the first sign of the market pulling back in commercial, with financing getting tougher, the Royal Commission. Yeah. Then you had Christmas. Then we had the state election, the federal election.
You hit the market in September?
November, September.
Yeah. Because every auction we had before that for commercial was just hard.
Yeah.
So they were, and every time, like, it was the market. Like, we'd like to take full responsibility for it. But it was the market. Hey, so it was just these cracker prices. You were getting 20% over,
20, 30% over. But the interesting thing was
2 years ago, 3 years ago, sort of. But then it just.
Yeah, just stopped in the arse because the inquiry levels were similar. So the listing that we led on for had about 150, 200 buyer inquiries. This had the same, but all the buyers just weren't committing. They just found any excuse. So that's where we sort of felt it coming back.
A comfortable question. How much do you reckon the market came back in commercial?
On that,
so if I was selling a cracker property in Brookvale 18 months ago...
20%.
It's massive.
It's fucking... And it's so hard to tell. It's not like a 2-bedroom unit in Dewar where there's 15 of them selling every week and you can sort of see that transition down or up. With commercial, it could be 3 to 4 months between a similar sale. So it's really hard to gauge where that is. And especially when you appraise it at one price and then the market goes there. It was interesting. But you've just got to have regular feedback, listen to the buyers, and still just... It was still sold on a 6% yield, so for a vendor, that's still great, and for a buyer, that's still great return on your investment as well.
And that yield was probably more like 4% for a developable property, sort of. So you could almost say the guy who bought it's a bit genius.
Yeah,
in terms of timing, you know what I mean. He would have been paying 20% more for the property.
Yep.
And he would have carried that 20% for the next 20, 30 years on his mortgage.
Yeah, because any freestanding purchase leading up to that was around 4 or 5%, and then it just sort of, the market pulled back, and 6% is a great buy.
So his yield now, the guy who bought this, his yield's 1 or 2% better than buying it 18 months ago, and he's not carrying an extra couple of $100,000 on the mortgage for the entire life of the ownership of the property.
Yep.
So if you time your purchasing in the marketplace well, it's pretty interesting, hey, because you could almost say that's where the magic is.
Yeah.
Just in if you just get timing right. Oh, probably look, to reality, the magic is length of holding at 8.
Yeah, that's where any key success or any great. If we look at any of our key clients and what they've done well is hold, not sell. And if they do sell, it's not betting against the market. It's sort of trading up or transitioning from. They've bought this property, added value, got new tenants in there, increased the rent, and then they're just doing it on a larger scale. So that's where we see it done well. This property, I think its inquiries now in the last couple of weeks have picked up. I think we're going to start to see things transition through. Now we'll have a bit of stability, which is great.
Yeah, and even if that lending's gonna, I think that even though everyone's saying, the lending is, it's going to come through in a month, APRA's going to be...
Yeah.
But for me, the big message was, I don't care when it comes through. The big thing for me was, it was APRA's change of heart.
Yes, their attitude. Yeah.
Their attitude, because their attitude the last probably 5 years, I remember 5 years ago, I was consolidating some loans, and the attitude of Westpac at that time was just different. And they were probably at the forefront, but it wasn't Westpac, it was Westpac responding to APRA's tightening. And that tightening's been going on for 4 or 5 years now. So whether this comes through or doesn't come through, the big message for me is the government's attitude.
Because a lot of the buyers, especially the ones I was dealing with in the campaign, I know they were cash purchasers. There's plenty of them out there, but they were still reluctant to buy because the banks were tight. Not because it was restricting them, just because they felt if if the banks are tight, then other people won't be able to get the money and it'll just draw down the market. So it comes down to the attitude. So I think it'll be positive the next sort of 6 months.
Congratulations again.
Thank you. It was a
That's
good sale.
it was a cracker sale, Gondola. We'll throw the link in for you guys.
Yep.
And from our experience, we're one of the leading operators in commercial in the Northern Beaches. This is something we would encourage you to look for and buy, even if it's not with us for sale. I think that was an intelligent purchase, wasn't it?
It was phenomenal. It had a 3-year lease with a 3-year option at a 6% return, 5% increases per year. It was a charity-based tenant, and it had development upside. It was zoned B2 as well. Yes, a lot of
that development upside had a couple of channels of benefits.
Huge.
What's the development upside? What does that mean?
It was zoned for mixed use, so you could do units, shop tops, boarding houses. It had everything. The one thing that sort of made people a little reluctant was it was in a flood zone, but I stressed to people, half the Northern Beaches, Narrabeen, Mona Vale is all in a flood zone.
Well, even our office here is in a flood zone.
Yeah.
If you go through Pilbara Road DY, you'll see all the new shops. A lot of them have to be built 70 centimetres above. It's pretty normal.
What learning from this campaign, what I would stress is if you're a buyer and you see something like, oh, it's in a flood zone, that should make you want to go in for it more. Because most people, once they hear it, will just stop the research and go to another property. Yeah. When actually, if you research about the repercussions or what you have to do to overcome that, it's huge. Like this property, it was in a flood zone, but then state, what was it called, Land Environmental Court, to encourage development, your height limit was 8.5 metres, and they would allow you to go 8.5 above the flood zone. So the reality is the flood zone did not affect the development potential, because normally if you're 8.5 metres and your flood zone's 1.2, they would take that off your height. So instead of being able to do ground 1 and 2 levels, you'll only be able to do ground and 1 level, so it doesn't make it feasible. But they wanted to encourage development, so they would actually allow you to build 9.7 metres. So most buyers just stopped, where if they actually researched it, it's good buying, and that's what this gentleman did. He researched it, understood, because there was 3 or 4 other developments in the area that it wasn't like it was it was something made up. There was 3 or 4 built developments at that higher level. So I think when you see something like that, flood zone or restrictions, learn about it. Speak to someone about it, because they're the opportunities.
Good on you, buddy. Congratulations.
Awesome.
Well done to the vendors. Well done to the purchasers. Everyone's a winner.
Everyone happy.
Cheers, guys.
Perfect.